Good greetings everyone, I'm Rusty Dog. In this video I'd like to talk about the Gnosis situation that I'm sure most, if not all of you, are aware of. There's been a lot of anger and derision pushed back in FDev's direction because of this, and perhaps the majority of that is down to how FDev handled the situation. It's very clear that FDev have scored an own goal here in trying to turn an event, which was never going to happen, into game content. This has backfired. For those not up on the situation, I will try and summarize it. If I have any of my story wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments so that I myself will be more informed. So, the Gnosis, for a little over a month now, has been planning a jump to the cone sector, something that Canon had arranged. To my knowledge, the entire cone sector was permit locked. So I assumed that this one system was going to be made available for the Gnosis to jump into, and that all surrounding systems would be permit locked, so there'd be nowhere to go. I wasn't 100% accurate in that assumption, but it paid off for me in the end. It seems that there were a few permit unlocked systems inside the cone sector that Frontier were not aware of, and that should have been permit locked, as the cone sector was to be used for a future narrative. So, Frontier, after seeing this oversight, permit locked the entire region, meaning the Gnosis would not jump there at all. I can only assume that Canon were notified of this. What I don't know yet is if Frontier told Canon of their plans to instead jump the Gnosis to a neighbouring system, under the guise of a Thargoid hyperdiction, and then have Scouts and Hydras, which is new content for Chapter 3, in the area for commanders to shoot at. I therefore also don't know if Canon okayed this plan, and therefore should take some of the blame too. As much as Frontier could have been more transparent and said no to the cone sector jump, Canon could have called it off. Either way, it should have been done at the earliest possible time. Now, as far as I was aware, the Gnosis was jumping to the cone sector, which had been locked off due to the presence of Hydra interceptors. Sure, it was a system no one had been to, so there would also have been the race to get it scanned for that lucrative first discovery. I myself saw no possible systems to jump to beyond the one where the Gnosis was going to, which is why I was a little unsure as to why people were taking exploration ships. The explorers are the ones who seem to have come off worst in this, but at the same time, what was there to explore but that one system? If they'd looked at the galaxy map recently, they would have seen the entire sector was permit locked. At least bring a Goid combat ship with the 2 exploration scanners on it, or buy them on the Gnosis. So all I was expecting when the Gnosis hit the cone sector was Hydras. So I went with the appropriate ship, my anti-Xeno Anaconda. Those who thought they were in some way going to be doing some exploration lost out the most, as they were no longer going to be going to this as yet uncharted system. Again, I don't know why people thought of this jump as an exploration opportunity more than, say, a combat opportunity. I'm not sure of the timeline as to when Frontier locked up all the systems in the cone sector that they thought were previously locked, but they're certainly all locked up now, and they were over a week ago when I checked. As for me personally, I'm disappointed in whatever you want to call this. A failure, a lack of communication between Canon and FDev, whatever it is. Knowing this jump wasn't going to ever happen, but then trying to make good by weaving new goidy gameplay into the result was clearly not going to go down well with all. 11,000 commandos made their way to the Gnosis, some from the bubble, and some had come from much further away. Some had grinded and built ships just for the event. There is a degree of unfairness here for sure. People feel cheated, and a lot of those people are still reeling from the announcement of no ice planet structures and fleet carriers in Chapter 4, which were promised. Personally, I was looking forward to both of those, but as far as I can tell, we will still be seeing these at a future date. So Frontier's timing on the Gnosis Plan B was not ideal, and the result is a lot of negative criticism, anger, resentment, and even players allegedly saying they're stopping playing. I find some of this a bit over the top. Some are making out as if Frontier's goal was to deliberately spoil the fun, when I can't bring myself to believe it was. I can understand the frustration, the annoyance, disappointment. A lot of people, including me, were all wanting to be in the cone sector. However, as I said before, my incorrect assumption that the cone sector was always all permit locked paid off for me, as I was only expecting combat. Had the Gnosis reached the cone sector, my ship was ready to die at the hands of a Hydra or two. That's all I was expecting, really. Well, the Gnosis only jumped around 12 light years, and I still got what I was on board for. Plus 3 new types of scouts too. So my gameplay on last night's live stream, I believe, is the same as what it would have been had I been in the cone sector. Add to that, we have Planet 2A in the system the Gnosis is in now, that contains a barnacle site and a Thargoid structure. And I believe a barnacle field as well is there, somewhere nearby the Gnosis. Check your planetary rings for that one. I wasn't going out there for exploration, or to be in the race to see who got the first discovery. And those who did stood to be far more disappointed than I was. As it is, I got what I wanted. And that we're not in the cone sector doesn't bother me that much. Of course, other people had other agendas, so I can understand their frustrations. But some of the venom that has been pushed back at Frontier on this is a bit overreactive in my opinion. I'm not surprised by it because it's largely a reactive community. Now, I'm not sticking up for Frontier in this because they messed up. The Salome episode was a joke. Chapter 4 is very disappointing. And now this. Frontier, I think, need to do something to make it up to the players. I don't know what, but something. Something by the way of compensation for the letdowns. Their plan to turn the failed jump into gameplay wasn't thought through. Perhaps it was the best alternative they had. What would have been a better alternative if the cone sector was a definite no-go? Were Frontier painted into a corner on this, or should the plug have been pulled on this planned jump weeks ago? They're getting criticism, of which I hope they take the constructive stuff on board. But if I was Frontier, I'd ignore the rants and people throwing their toys out of the pram and continue to make the game they want. Just try to avoid not delivering on things that people are expecting. Lastly, as for the hype people are complaining that Frontier did on this Gnosis trip, there is nothing. Nothing beyond a couple of Galnet articles. Certainly nothing on their Facebook page. So, hardly hype. Most of the hype was player-based and in the imagination of others. So in summary, Frontier and Canon messed this up, in my opinion, due to what I see as a lack of communication. Frontier, I think, had the choice to just prevent the jump or do what they did. Out of the two options, I'd take the one we're in, every day of the week. The cone sector will open up at some point for those that haven't already quit. So yes, I'm disappointed, but I'm not angry. And no, I don't work for Frontier.